Hello, 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 friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Mental Corner Podcast, the show where I bring on guests from all different backgrounds to talk all the things mental health. I'm your host, Harry Potvin, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by Aisha Adams. Aisha is a poet, a muse, a blogger, and the author of the new book, I See How You've Kept Me, which is a four-part poetry book that takes you through a journey of brokenness to reach complete healing. Aisha was a lot of fun to talk to, so shout out to her for coming on and having this discussion with me. Now, this episode is kind of significant, and I wanted to address this in the previous episode, but I completely forgot about it. This will be my 53rd episode of season 3. And when I started filming for this season in December, I had put a goal that I wanted to do one episode a week, and that would tally up to 52 episodes. And a couple days ago, we released our 52nd episode, and we are now on our 53rd. And it's just kind of crazy to me that so many people want to come on, and honestly, low key, that the show's still going. So big shout out to everyone who's either been on or who keeps supporting the show. Little milestones like this are, big motivators for me, even though, they're kind of small, but they mean the world to me. So thank you again. It means the world. Now, before we get started here, guys, if you're listening, you know the drill. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, give 5 stars if you're on that podcast platform. Share with someone who might want to hear this episode. It's a really great one, and I can't wait for you to listen. I'll talk to y'all very soon. Have a great rest of your day. Peace. We are live. Aisha, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on here.
Yeah, I'm pumped. So before we get too into everything, I wanted to get to know you a little bit better. So where did your journey with your platform, where did that kind of start?
Okay, well, honestly, I'd have to say it started once the whole lockdown started, like everyone else. Big transformation. Um, do you mean like in terms of my book?
Yes.
Or-
Your
Yes.
book and then like Seeds Before Water and the whole deal.
Right. So Seas Before Water actually started in my first year of university. And my blog was actually called Simply Living at first. And I was kind of just writing down my thoughts and like posting some poetry because I was going through some things at that time. And writing has always been like my way of expression. I used to perform spoken word and stuff like that.
Mm.
So I was like, let me just open a blog. And I wrote consistently for like 2 years. And then I started to think about a way that I wanted to change my blog, but I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know what to do, what I should change it to. So I kind of just kept posting poetry. And then once COVID started, I actually had like a big epiphany and I found God again, my Christian faith, which is really, really a big part of my life now. It's like the main part of my life now. And I ended up changing my blog from Simply Living to Seeds Before Water, which is actually based off the scripture Luke 8, the parable of the seed. And I said seeds before water because, in a way, we're all seeds. We're all seeds still growing, still figuring out, what type of soil we should be planted in, what type of, how to take care of ourselves, how much water we need, how much sun we need. So I said seeds before water because this is like us before that realization. And I feel like when I started the blog, I was still figuring out myself. I was me before knowing who I was. So seeds before water is like me figuring out who I am before the water. And finding God really helped things come together. I read this quote once and they were like, oh, if you want to know who you are, you need to ask your creator. You need to go to the one who created you. And when COVID started, I basically stopped focusing on always chasing goals, always doing things, and was finally able to just sit down and think and sit down and listen. And finally, God spoke to me and started to reveal things to me, started to reveal who I was created to be. And that was it. Everything just started to go up from there. I started writing my book, I See How You've Kept Me. And I was able to finish it because I actually started this book like 2 years ago, but I could
Mm,
never finish. I could never finish because I just didn't know how to write about chapter 4, which is about healing. I could
mhm.
never finish that chapter, and then meeting God, I finally started to heal and started to have the poems, the right words to put inside the book. Was able to design it the way I wanted to, and then that's what happened.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Now, when you said God spoke to you, was it like a clear messaging, or did it like over time you were kind of like, oh, this is what it is. I get it now.
Yeah. He didn't speak to me like I didn't hear a vivid voice.
Hmm.
There wasn't a distinctive voice that was like, Aisha, this is who you are. Because I would probably ran out the door. I would have like jumped out the window. But in reality, it was this it was this like very strong feeling of like, hey, you're not alone. You're not doing all of this stuff. Like, you're not going through these things alone. You're not living for yourself. There is something greater. There is someone greater that will help you, that will guide you. And I remember my little sister at the time, this was in like May, she was basically talking about Jesus and God. And I was in the new age at the time. So I was all about crystals, tarot cards, manifestation, psychic. So I wasn't really listening to her. But then I had like a really intense mental breakdown one night. And I was just like, I was so lost. I was lost. Everything I was doing wasn't working anymore. Meditating wasn't working. Just the things I was so used to doing just wasn't impacting my life anymore. And I remember just like sitting down and I was staring at my wall and I was like, yo, God, like if you're really real, I need you to show me who you are.
Mm,
Like if you're really out here, if you're really here for me, like I need you to reveal yourself to me. I want to know you because I don't know anything. I don't know who else to go to anymore. And then the next day, my little sister, she ordered 2 Bibles on Amazon like a week before this event happened. And then, no, she ordered 1 Bible on Amazon. And then 2 Bibles came in.
mm,
Like they mistakenly gave her 2 Bibles and then she just gave me the Bible. And the Bible is basically the book that shows you who God is. If you want to know who God is, you have to read the Bible to know who he is and understand how he works. So I asked God to reveal himself to me and he gave me the Bible. And that was it. That was my confirmation. Okay, it's time to know who God is. And here I am now.
wow. And I love when, you get little signs in life like that, like little tidbits where it's like, oh, I'll give you 2 Bibles instead of one. Just a little
Yeah.
sneak. That's awesome.
Mhm. And
Now,
God is
how,
very intentional like that too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. So, how is your like mental state now? We're like a year and a half into this lockdown. Things are starting to open up. Like, how do you feel now?
I feel a lot at peace, and I also feel a lot more ready to take on the world. Before, if you met me before, I had a lot of dreams and aspirations, but I was never excited about the future because I honestly didn't think I would live past like the age of 25.
Hmm.
Like it just wasn't a concept to me. Like I was just like, yeah, something's gonna happen, and eventually I'm just gonna die, and I won't have to worry about it. And now I'm a lot more hopeful. I'm a lot more brave to take on all these adversaries that life places in us. And I'm excited. I'm excited and I'm happy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel that where you're like, yeah, I can't whoa. You're like, yeah, I can't picture myself after like 25 or 30. It's a weird feeling. You're like people because I used to be a kid who planned everything. I had everything planned. I was like, I'm gonna get married at this age, I'm gonna have a family at this age, blah blah blah. It like kept me sane, which in the long run didn't help. But now it's like I can't really look that far, and I'm not sure why.
Mm, yeah. Maybe it's like, do you feel like you're letting go a little bit of those expectations and those plans, or?
Yeah. So, I mean, I almost took my own life. And when I went to therapy, like one of the big things was that I like making a plan and I need to follow that plan. And whenever something in that plan goes awry, which in life always happens, uh, my world felt like it was crumbling apart. And so
I did a lot of work in the sense of have a plan skeletal wise, like have an outline of where you want to go, but don't live day by day planning everything
Yeah.
because it's not going to go according to plan. So I think, as a product of that, I don't look that far ahead,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. Because you don't want to. I feel like when you plan too much, it actually stresses you out.
Hmm.
Everything becomes like a bit more stressful because you don't know how to let go, and you become too focused on this one thing. And when you're so focused on your life, you're not letting room for God to come in and intervene.
Right.
You're not letting room for things to actually happen on its own. So at that point, you're not even living in flow. You're living in a state of restriction because you're
Hmm.
trying to like stay in this box that you've created for yourself. But I don't think human beings are meant to live that way. I don't think we're meant to have full controls of our lives that way because we're not the ones who created it. We don't even know what is planned for us. So
Right.
there needs to be some form of disobedience, of not disobedience, of obedience, and being able to let go and let things kind of unfold themselves. Because life does unfold itself in some ways.
Mhm. Yeah, it's weird that way. Life just keeps going.
It does. It keeps going, doesn't stop. Hey,
Man,
I kind of vibe with it, but
I kind of vibe with it too. I mean, whatever happens with you, life keeps going on. I think that's pretty. Well, if you think about life that way, like for me anyway, it calmed me down a lot to realize that because when you're stuck in your own head, not in a selfish way, but life almost revolves around you in your own, like you think that life revolves all around you, not in a selfish way though. You're like, oh, if like I can't mess up because the world's gonna laugh at me. It's like, well, life's gonna keep going, man. It's not just gonna stop and look at you. Like that's
no, absolutely not.
like, you're not gonna be ridiculed across the world unless you're, I don't know, like there's some specific cases, but life just keeps going.
Yeah, and if you really take it in, we're just a floating rock in the
I
universe.
know.
Like, if you just what we see, the life that we think, the whole world that we think is the whole world is actually just a small part on this earth.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, not a lot of people know who we are. We really are more free than we think. It's not like all eyes are on us, or we live in a fishbowl where everyone's just trying to look at our next move. Our life is more private than we think it is.
Hmm.
It really is. And I feel like social media has created this illusion of like people are always watching you, your likes, your story views, all these type of things. But in reality, we have a lot of quiet and intimate moments in our lives. And I think those are the ones that we need to cherish more.
Yeah, for sure. I think we cherish the opposite way too much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you know, people lose sleep over how many likes they get. It's
That's
like, come
crazy.
on, man. It's like, come on,
Yeah,
man.
that blows my mind.
I know it's really upsetting. Like I've had one friend, and I won't say their name, but like they literally one day were like, I couldn't sleep last night. I'm like, why? They're like, my post didn't do well. I'm like, are you kidding me? Your post? They're like, yeah, I looked really good in it, and not. It was like one of my lowest liked ones. I'm like, so
I mean, what really matters is that you looked good.
yes.
Yeah, if you look good to yourself, that's what should matter. I don't know. I think realistically, social media has changed the way everybody views the world and views themselves.
Yeah.
Like in a way, even though social media is like a highlight reel of the best moments of our life, um, it's become like the most important part of our lives.
Hmm.
People don't see this reality as reality; they see social media as reality. When the social media, our online selves, is like the least authentic version of ourselves half the time.
Thinking about what you just said is terrifying.
Yeah, like, do you ever think about it though that way?
No.
I really think
Now.
about I really think about it like a lot because it's like when we have our very like fun moments, a lot of people are more interested in, oh, I can't wait to put this on my story. And it's like,
Yeah.
yo, don't you want to just experience it? Like What happened to taking pictures and then having actual pictures and just keeping it in your room, keeping it to show your kids or your generations to come? Instead, we want to Instagram it. We want to show people that will probably like it and forget about it in like 10 minutes.
I've done that. And people are like, "Did you see my post?" I'm like, "No." And they're like, "You liked it though." I'm like,
You know,
"Oh."
yeah, but that's crazy. It's like that. It's because there's so much more to life than that, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. Like,
It
you
is.
know, as when you're a kid, your parents have photo albums on photo albums, and they're everywhere, and you have your history right there. I don't know. I don't think I have any developed pictures of me after like 7.
Yeah,
Everything's
it's a
online.
lot. Hmm.
So like, you know, what if something stops working? What if all that
You lose
data's
all.
gone?
What if you lose a memory card? Yeah.
Oh, that that really tripped me out when you were like, yeah, people, because it's true, people view that as reality as opposed to reality, which is so scary,
It is.
especially the younger generations who like they like, I mean, come on, we're not old, but like kids who grow up with a phone in their hand.
Yeah.
Like we didn't have that.
Hmm.
We eased into it.
Exactly. And we also spent more time outside, indoors, and online, looking at our phone.
Yeah. Yeah, I like what, I don't even know what kids do now for fun.
Yeah, like I actually have to make my siblings, because I'm the oldest of six, and I have some pretty younger siblings, and I actually have to make them go outside and play, and like make them explore the world, like go to the beach and pick up different shells or pick up rocks and stuff like that, because they they have tablets, and sometimes they'd rather sit down in their room, like looking at YouTube videos or like watching TikToks.
I mean, I don't blame them. It's addicting,
It is.
but like TikTok is addicting. But
It's than that.
yeah, no kidding. But man, like when I was a camp counselor at the zoo, I was in charge of like 8 to 10 year olds, and there was this one 8 year old girl who was like, "Can I follow you on Instagram?" And I was like, "No."
Old, wow.
Yeah, she was 8, and I was like, first of all, that's weird, so no. Second of all, you have Instagram at 8? And she was like, so I said no. She's like, what about Facebook? I was like, no. She's like, what about Snapchat? I was
They
like,
all of that?
they have all of it. I was like, no, I'm not following you on Snapchat, man. But it's
Yeah,
crazy. They have everything. I can't even imagine, and I've said this on the show, I can't even imagine what my mental health would be like if I had to like that kind of social media in elementary school. Could you imagine?
I don't even know. I can't. I can't because it's like social media. It's so strange that they call it social media because it makes us really antisocial in real life.
That's true. That's facts.
You know,
Yeah.
like it's so weird because you don't develop those people skills. Like I know people that are doing so well online, but they can't even have a normal conversation in real life.
Yes.
They can't even make eye contact.
Oh,
And it's
it's
like,
so weird,
yeah, it's strange. It confuses me, but I guess this is the world we live in now. Who knows?
man.
Who knows?
That goes back to dating online
Yeah,
because for me anyway, like you always know what to say and the other person always knows the right thing to say, and then you meet them in person, you're like, "Oh, I don't like this person."
yeah. It's easy to like to become someone else online. It's so
Easily.
easy. Everything online is calculated.
Mhm.
You know, but then when you're in real life, it's like, okay, we're actually put on the table now. Like we can't hide behind a phone screen. We can't think about how we want to word these things. Like this is just how we talk.
Yeah.
So it's like I feel like maybe in a way there's a lack of people skills now. And then also you add this whole pandemic and like schools being closed and you think about the little kids not going to school, socializing with kids, doing everything online now, you just start to question how socializing is going to look like in the future.
I'm not looking forward to it.
I'm very concerned.
I just hope like we get back to it because like humans are supposed to socialize, and not technology. Like through a screen is so different. Like you don't catch that person's energy. You don't catch like I don't know. It's like a different feeling when you're in person
It
that you
is.
just completely miss out on.
It's intimacy, right? Do you have a dog?
Yeah, I have to film stuff in here. I have like a room where I film things, but I come in here sometimes because she's got really bad separation anxiety.
Oh, right.
So she'll be like outside of my door crying all the time. So I just kind of I'll film in here so she can lay on the bed.
Oh, that's cute though. I love dogs. I have a dog too.
Yeah, she I don't know if you found this with your dog, but the pandemic has made her very very attached because we can't leave.
Like when we leave and we close like a door, he scratches the bottom of the door. So now like our doors have scratch marks.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
no. Um I'll go in, I'll go brush my teeth and she'll be crying. I'm like, I'm brushing my teeth, man. I'm like right there. It's like a 5 second thing.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. This lockdown's got everyone on a
life is,
different wavelength.
yeah, life has changed. Like I when a lot of people talk about, oh, I can't wait for things to go back to normal. I'm like, y'all, you need to get ready because this is the new normal. Life is not going to go back to the same after this. It's not. Whether we like to believe it or not, we have to learn to adapt in some way. We have to learn to just figure out a new way to, I don't want to say cope, but a new way to just live,
Mm,
you know? I mean,
yeah. So how do we get there?
how do we get there? Acceptance, letting go of that idea of the past and how things were before COVID, and kind of like really being present in the now and looking at how everybody's acting now, looking at how things are changing and how we can find the good in it.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, I actually had a moment. I think it was last night. All the days are blurring together, but I had a moment last night where I like I thought back to what summer was it? I think it was the summer going into first year university because that was like one of my favorite summers ever. And it was like, we went to the cottages and I was with a ton of friends and it was like the first summer where I personally just kind of let myself go in terms of just had fun because all throughout high school I was kind of like, no, I gotta study, I gotta swim, I gotta train. Like, but that was kind of the summer I was like, I'm gonna let go. And it was like the most fun summer ever. And I was looking back on it and getting really sad. And then that's kind of like you're gonna get that.
Yeah.
You can't dwell on it because like I was on it for like what, an hour, and it ate at me. So I
Yeah.
can't even imagine people who are like the entire lockdown going like, oh, I want to go back to that.
Yeah. No, I vibe with that. Like your experience, I've had that experience multiple times, especially when it first started. It
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, I can't wait for things to come back. But then all of a sudden, another lockdown. And it's like when that lockdown's about to end, you think, okay, maybe this is it. Things are going to go back to normal. And then another lockdown. So it's like you kind of have to make do with what you have.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make do with what you have. Like some people have it worse. Some people really have it worse right now. Some people, like half their families are in the hospital. Some people, they've lost people already. Some people can't even leave their house because they're so afraid because they have like immune illnesses, and they can catch the virus easily and stuff like that. So you just have to learn to really find little things that you can be happy with and focus on those.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on those things. Like, I don't know, waking up in the morning and having time to make a good breakfast. That's one thing to be happy about. Cause like, I don't know, before COVID, I used to run out the house with like a cup of coffee. I
Yeah.
never had time to sit down and just eat breakfast, or even being able to sit down with your family, knowing that you don't have like so much things to do, and you just have to make do with what we have. That's
Mm-hmm.
how I see it.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Oh shoot. Oh yeah. I was gonna ask, like, because another side to that is like, we have so much free time, and because social media is our new reality, everyone's on it all the time, um, for better or for worse. But you get there's so much media and so much information from so many different areas around the world about like unfortunate tragedies that are going on and like other things. But how do you not let that overwhelm you? Because it's so much information, and like it's important to be educated in what's going on, of course, but how do you not let that like overwhelm you mentally?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's a good question. Like for me personally, I have to realize that I can't do everything. Like bad things happen every single day, and there isn't much we can do about it. There
Hmm.
are wars happening, and there isn't much we can do about it. So sometimes I really do just sit down and pray. Like I'll take an hour out of my day and actually pray for this specific issue, like the Palestinians. Like I took an hour out of my day for like a week and just prayed for them, prayed, worshiped, and just believing that God can do and doing what I can with what I have. Sharing their posts, donating, writing emails, um, doing what we can. But there's just so much we can do. So if you focus so much on like all the things that's happening and how you can help, you're gonna really drive yourself mad because there isn't much we can do.
Hmm.
There isn't much we can do. We just have to do what we can do. And what we can do is, maybe sharing information, educating ourselves, educating those around us, donating if we can. That's just kind of how I look at it. How do you deal with it?
I mean, I don't know, like there was definitely a point um where I let it overwhelm me, because you get all the news, and for me anyway, like how do I put this without, I don't want to sound like I'm like upping myself. Like I have a big heart. I don't know how to say that without sounding
Yeah.
braggy. It's just who I am. But
No, it's
like,
yeah.
yeah, so you see these things and you see like people going through it, and it's like for a while it took me over. It took over me, sorry, because it was like you feel helpless, because it's like I'm seeing this, I'm seeing it happen, but like I'm on the other side of the freaking planet. Or like when things were going on in in the States, or even here in Canada, it's like I'm like I'm just I'm a little fish in a huge pond with all this stuff going on. Like I don't know how to do it. So for me, it really overwhelmed me. And I mean, being overwhelmed about it is different than experiencing it. So in that sense, I'm fortunate. But so what I guess I do the same as you. You just got to do what you can and realize that you can't do everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's like this one podcast I listened to last year when all of that thing was happening with like George Floyd, because that really did mess with me. Like I'm not
Hmm.
gonna lie, that really affected me because I watched the video.
Yeah.
I watched the video and that was just like blew my mind because I'm black. I have black siblings. I don't want them to grow up in the world like this.
Hmm.
Um, but one thing that we have to realize, and especially because of like my Christian faith, is that we live in a very spiritual world. We are spiritual beings, and the things around us is more spiritual than we think. And things like war, things like hate crimes, racism. Um, yeah, it's people that do these things, but you have to realize that there are spiritual forces behind that doing it, evil forces behind those actions, behind those movements. So sometimes we have to be able to really watch and equip ourselves. Like if we start to have a lot of anger, a lot of anxiety, a lot of frustration, those emotions are not from God.
Hmm.
Even though we have like good intentions, we're angry because we don't like the injustice that's being done. We don't like what's happening. We have to realize that sometimes all these things can steal your peace. really, really putting yourself into these like worldly things can steal your peace. So you have to be able to distinguish between, okay, spiritual warfare and mental state. Like you have to be able to distinguish between those two things, which is why I really, really do turn to God in moments like this, in moments of crisis, because I believe and I know that God is greater than all of these worldly things. And I have to really believe that he's working things for the greater good. I
Mm,
have to believe that all things, I have to believe the wicked will not go unpunished. I have to believe that whoever is suffering right now, God is going to console them. I have to believe in something greater than myself, because in those situations there isn't much I can do, but there is so much that God can do.
right.
So that's kind of like a perspective that really helps me now. Just really like paying attention to those things, like the things that really steal your peace, the things that make you really, really angry all the time. You have to realize, okay, obviously something is trying to make me angry. Obviously something is trying to steal my peace in this moment. Obviously something is trying to make me feel defeated, you know? So that's just like a little tad bit.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's great. When when things like this are happening, is it hard sometimes to find the reasoning behind why things are happening?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, a lot of people will be like, oh, if God is so good, then why does he let bad things happen?
Mhm.
And we won't be able to know these things because God is more sovereign than us. God is greater, like his thinking is greater than our thinking. We will never understand the way God works. But we have to know that in all things God is good. And just as God exists, so does the devil. So you have to realize that there are like evil and good things clashing at all times, darkness and lightness clashing at all times. So sometimes when bad things happen, we got to pray, because that could be the devil's work. Yes, God does sometimes let things happen, but realistically, the devil is still working hard on this earth, which is why the earth is filled with so much turmoil, so much pain, so much depression and negativity. But God is still greater than all of that. God can still conquer all of that, and God helps us cope with all of that. God helps us um, uh, deal with all of those things. We can't do these things on our own. And it's the same reasons why we ourselves, we've gone through terrible things, in our life. We've gone through traumas, things that's just really made us question, like, God, why would you let this happen to me? But we don't realize until like a few years down the line, we don't realize how that one situation helped us with this situation, how that
Mhm.
one traumatic situation prepared us, for this task that we have to do now, you know so that's just like how I look at it. It's A lot of people don't like to hear that. They don't like to hear that sometimes God lets bad things happen. But it's the truth. His way of thinking is so much greater than ours, and we'll never understand why certain things happen. But we have to know, and we have to trust that God is good, and somehow, some way, maybe a few years down the line, something will come out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um so you mentioned that before you saw God, you were into like the meditation and the crystals and everything. So I'm trying to think of how to word the question. Actually, yeah, no, sometimes my brain freezes
Oh,
and it's it's just like it's like you're working too hard. Um but so on when you look back on your own personal journey, like I was reading up a bit about you on your website, like with your grade, like in grade 4, diagnosed with a learning disability. And then, as life went on, when you look back on that stuff, like, Do you now see how that prepared you for right now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Like it's crazy. So, one thing that I learned recently is that when you accept Christ into your life, that doesn't mean your life is always going to be peaceful. Sometimes accepting Christ in your life is basically wearing an armor, knowing that you'll be fighting with a lot of, unforeseen things, a lot of unforeseen spirits and stuff like that. You will be battling, but we can conquer, we can do anything through Christ who strengthens us. And to answer your question, definitely what I went through growing up prepared me for where I am now. And I'm starting to see it now. Like I couldn't see it last year. If you asked me last year, I wouldn't be able to see it. But now I'm starting to really see it. Um, so I'm sure like you read on my blog, I had that whole diagnosis with the learning disability and then basically joining the wrong crowds and then people saying that I'm going to end up in jail and stuff like that. It really played with my head. And I never thought I was destined for great things. I never thought I was ever going to do anything, and I actually did attempt suicide. I actually did try to kill myself and I did wake up in the hospital like a week later. I went through that whole experience. And even then, even when I woke up, I still wasn't grateful I was alive. I was still angry at God. I was like, why would you even make me live? If my life isn't even going to be great, like what's the point of keeping me here, you know um and the perception of me at that time was a juvenile, was someone who couldn't listen, someone who was ghetto, someone who was loud, reckless. And I always felt like an outcast. I always felt like people didn't expect much of me, especially teachers and schools. I actually remember when I got back to school after my attempted suicide, my biology teacher at the time, when I came back, she was like, "Oh, welcome back, but you still have a lot of work to do. All because you leave doesn't mean the world stops."
Bruh.
That was the first. That was like that was what I got the first time I got back to school. And that really messed with my head too. That actually that I took it took me a while to get past that, what she said. It just made me
Mhm.
feel terrible. And I was just like, damn, like, I just went through some messed up stuff. Like people at school just thought I had a seizure and was in a coma, but I'm like, damn, even with that, people still think I don't care about school. People still think I'm just like a lazy person. People still think that, I'm all jokes all the time. And fast forward after many, many years of like healing and making mistakes and then healing from that and just all of that, um, I'm in a place now where I actually get to help people that are seen as outcasts, people that society doesn't expect much of them. I'm actually right now helping build this nonprofit organization that helps prisoners through prison ministry.
Mm.
So we basically empower convicts and ex-convicts and their families while also advocating for prison reform and restorative justice principles. And I can see how my past prepared me for this role. I don't think if I actually went through what I went through, I would be able to do the things I'm doing now. There is no way. Because
Right.
what I went through allowed me to sympathize for prisoners, allowed me to sympathize with them and their experiences and their families, because I know what it feels like. And I know exactly how they feel and how I can help them. And that wouldn't be if I didn't go through what I went through. So that's kind of a way to answer that.
Yeah. It came full circle.
Full circle. Full circle. And I still don't know where God is going to take me with, this that I'm doing now, or even the experiences of my past. I still don't know, but I'm able to see it unravel as I go. As you grow up, God reveals to you where he's going to take you. God reveals to you how all these experiences will eventually prepare you for these different tasks. He reveals them to you over time, but you just have to stay obedient and just kind of have to just keep going.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. Why do we always, why are people in different positions of power, why are they so quick to label kids and put them in a box?
Honestly, I don't know. that I don't know, you know. When I was diagnosed with a learning disability, one thing I do remember was whenever I was taken out of class and put into like a different special class, I noticed I was always with other people of color.
Mm, yeah.
And so, I think there is something systematic there. The people of power, they're still following this systematic, like, I don't know, systematic rule or something that just still oppresses people and their children. And that's just my experience. I'm not that educated to speak on these certain matters, but in my experience, that's just what I noticed. I felt like there was a little bit of prejudice and an inability to understand different cultures and different upbringings and why children would be different. Instead, I feel like it was just easier for them to see a Black girl that was acting out and just label her as like a learning disability and just a lost cause.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, they didn't even take time to know who you were. They just kind of said, yeah, you're going to be in jail by 18.
Yeah. And what's really crazy is a year before that diagnosis, my family and we were in a shelter,
Mm,
but the school didn't even know that. They didn't know that my dad had just left us and my mom had to go to a shelter for single mothers with children. They didn't even ask, they didn't even try to see why I would be a kid that was acting out like that or why I couldn't focus in school. They didn't know what I was doing. They didn't know that I had to comfort my mother that was crying again last night.
hmm
They couldn't see these things. Instead, they just saw a Black girl coming to class, wasn't able to focus, wasn't able to do the work, always talking, always kind of misbehaving, acting out. So definitely there needs to be some form of reform in the education system and how they diagnose kids, because there are so much other societal factors that contributes to the way kids act. It's not just because of their brain. It could just be because of their family, because of their upbringing, because of trauma.
Yeah, well, jeez, talk about, yeah, there's got to be a big education reform. Like you nailed it. Like sometimes, not all teachers, but sometimes teachers just expect so much from kids.
Mm.
Like they expect these like 10-year-old kids to focus only on school, which is always boring. I mean, if you're interested in it, sorry, but for me, it was always boring. But
Mm.
like, they don't care about what's going on outside.
Yeah,
You could have come from like, you could be sleeping on the street. They wouldn't care. They're like, how good are your marks in my class?
exactly. It's
It's
weird.
crazy.
It's
Yeah,
so
it's
weird.
awful.
Like, I don't know why. Like, why would you become a teacher if you can't be that passionate for kids to actually know about their upbringing and where they came from? Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, because the thing with like diagnosing people, I think it's important that people know what's going on so that they can get the proper help they need, because I didn't even know what the word depression meant until I got into university and was diagnosed with it. But I think labeling kids so young, just based off what they're doing in your classroom
Mm.
or based on what you're seeing without knowing them very well, I don't think that's fair.
It's
Because
not.
then, regardless of who says what after, they automatically put themselves in that box. They identify as that label that you just gave them, because you're in that position of power and they look up to you. And if that person in power goes, yeah, you're just dumb, or you have a learning disability, or you're going to jail by 18. Hearing that from someone in power, you go, well, shit, I guess so.
Yeah.
And that, like, it's so, like, I don't think people realize how impactful words are on children.
Because we're developing, like that's primary socialization at its finest right there. We are still
Mhm.
developing who we are, how we view the world. And imagine while you're still viewing the world, learning who you are, someone's telling you you're not good enough. You need help. You're not smart enough. You don't listen. you misbehave, you're a bad kid.
Yeah. I actually not to the same extent, but when I was coming up in school, I was often, because I think I'm fairly smart, I like to think so. but but in school, I was really bad at math, like terrible at math, because it's just like, come on, like this stuff is so stupid. But all the math fans are really pissed off right now. But I remember being in like grade 10, and I think I got like 20% on the exam, because I don't know, I just didn't know it. And I my teacher like brought me into class, and he was like, what did he say? It was something like, I don't remember what he said, but I remember the feeling so vividly, because I felt like such a failure. Because he was like, you know, what did he say? It was something like, everything you've done this year has been so disappointing. Um, it was something like, everything you've been doing this year has been so disappointing, but so expected. It was like something along those lines, where it was like, I'm disappointed but not surprised. And I was in grade 10, and that's like a little older than these kids, but my whole life I was told I'm terrible at math, based on the education system and how my marks were. And so when I actually heard it in words from a person I looked up to, I was like, well, shit. And then all through high school, I just was awful at math, because I just accepted it. I didn't even
Yeah.
bother putting work in. And it's like little things like that. Like that conversation was like 4 seconds long. And it like shaped
Yeah.
how I viewed half of the education system. Like, people have to realize there's more impact on their words than they think there is.
Absolutely. Especially when you're like a kid, it's like when you're a kid, realistically, even just your math, your what's it called? Your grade 10 classroom is the whole world.
Yes.
It's like everything is so small. When we're in high school, when we're in elementary school, life is very, very small, but it feels like the whole world. So imagine something feeling like the whole world and you're getting all of these negative feedback. That's not helpful, by the way, because sometimes if someone gives you feedback, it can actually help you, but they word it in ways that are detrimental to your growth. And that's just how you're going to view the world. That's just going to be your perception from now on. And it's crazy. And when you said just that 4 second conversation shaped your life, that's really how it works half the time in the education system. That's it.
Hmm.
Just that one moment, and then you're going to be dealing with that until you're like late adulthood, just trying to deal with those things that people said. Like, it's crazy.
I know. You like I did some of that inner child work with Hazel, and
Yeah.
she's been on the show, but we were talking about where this root cause of like uh my self-confidence issues came from.
Right.
And we got back all the way to the school playground in like freaking grade 2, because I was a new kid at school, and immediately I was labeled like fat, gay, which is not a problem, but like at the time it was like, no, it was like fat, gay, stupid, like ugly, like these things right away. I didn't Before I made any friends, it was like that labeling, and I had no one to turn to. I'm 23, and I still have issues with it.
Yeah.
It's like it goes forever if you don't pay attention.
Yeah. It really does. It really does. Like, it's actually primary socialization. Like, that we are shaping our world, and those little early years are the most crucial years of our life when it comes to development. Like, whatever we learn, whatever we soak into our brains at that time will most likely stay, and we'll be dealing with that for years to come. I know people that are like 40 still dealing with things that happened in their childhood.
Yep.
Like, it doesn't end. That's why it's so important, like so important that the education system finds ways to just help kids without ruining their self-image. By the time they graduate high school, their self-image is just ruined. How are we setting people up for the future? How are we setting people, our younger generation, for adulthood? How are we setting them up?
Not very well.
Not very well. Not very well. Like, But hey, that's good. That it's good that we're having these conversations now, though. Because if we have these conversations now, and more people have these conversations, hopefully it's going to actually create a shift in some way sooner than later.
Mhm.
Later.
I mean, I hope so. I mean, when I feel like our generation is like the one that's going to start that. I feel like we're starting to be more self-aware and aware of like what's happened growing up and like looking back and going, hey, that was pretty messed up.
Yeah.
Maybe that should stop happening. Um, but I think I'm hopeful because once we get into positions of like teachers and whatever other education leadership roles there are, like I think it will be better. There's always going to be some bad apples, but I think our overall mentality is different.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know what? We can do it. I believe in us. I believe in this generation.
Yeah, I do
I
too.
believe in the people that's coming out of it. Yeah, I believe in us. Let's do it.
Let's do it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember there was a time last year where the people from my high school we all have Twitter and people were just like listing things off that were so messed up that happened at our school. And it was like, this is good. Like, I'm glad we're doing this because not only did all of our school kind of take a step, like the people our age kind of take a step back and go, wait a minute. Yeah, you got a point. That was really messed up.
Mhm.
Teachers came in on it and then the board came in on it and they're like, whoa, like this is really messed up. And it's like, we didn't even see it from that point of view. It's like, well, finally we can freaking acknowledge this because there were some things that went on in high school where you're like, did we just let that slide?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're not going to talk about that.
That part.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
Like there was like they said some things and I remember just going like, I remember when that happened and I was in high school and I went, are we allowed to do that? And then
Mm,
that was it. That was the extent of the conversation because I was like, is we're just going to let that happen? And people were like, I
I
mean, I
don't know.
guess they're
Yeah.
teachers. And we're like, okay. Like that was it.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, there is like this weird hierarchy in schools too, where kids don't even feel like they can like voice their opinions against teachers and against the board and what's happening. It's weird, and that's probably what school systems should start doing. They should start having like a forum where students can just voice what they didn't like and stuff like that, and things that really messed them up. So teachers can read it, the board can read it, and hopefully that can just change something, anything, please. So.
It's crazy that like for me anyway in high school, if someone voiced their opinion, they were viewed as a rebel. They were labeled as a rebel for voicing their opinion.
Pardon?
Oh, I said like it's crazy that, like for my high school anyway, when someone voiced their opinion to a teacher and said like, hey, that was actually offensive or like, hey, that made me uncomfortable, they were labeled as a rebel
Yes.
for voicing their opinion.
Yes. Yes, I agree 100% with that. Because I was that kid. I was that kid. I didn't care. Like, if you said something I didn't like, if you said something I thought wasn't right, I'd like, no, I don't vibe with that. That doesn't make sense, sir. And they'd be like, I should get out the hall. Go to the hall. Get outside. Go to the office. I'm like, okay.
Everyone's like, oh,
And
like
like what?
for saying
Anyway.
like hey, what you said actually doesn't make me feel great. They're like, what the fuck, you're gonna go to jail, like
Yeah.
what?
They actually go from 0 to 100 real quick.
So
Like
quick.
some teachers that you'll talk back to them and they're like, if you keep this up, you know what's gonna happen to you? You're gonna be in prison. You're gonna be in the prison system. Good luck finding a job. And you're just there like, oh man, I just said I don't think you can be talking about Black issues that way. That's all I said.
No, that deserves jail time.
Yeah.
Like come on. I had one where we had this French teacher, like the bane of my existence. Like she, every time I say her name my friends go, but but I remember my friend was eating crackers in class and he was like the messiest eater on the planet, and he had left crackers on the floor. And she was like, Harry, were you eating crackers? And I was like, no. And then she was like, I don't believe it because you're big enough that you would eat all the time. I was like, what? That was so out of left. That was so out of pocket.
No, she was wrong for that. She was wrong for that. I would have been like,
Call me.
you the hell out of me.
She called me fat in front of the whole class, and I wasn't even eating them. If I had been eating them, I would have been like, "Oh shit." Well, I mean, respect, I guess, but I wasn't even. And then there was another time where she was like, the French class, by the way, where she was like, Harry, out of nowhere, we were reading a French book, and she was like, Harry, do you know long division? And I was going back to the math thing. I was like, I mean, I know what it is. Yeah, I don't really know how to do it. I still don't. And she was like, you don't know how to do long division? And I was like, no. And she was like, get up here. I'm gonna give you a long division problem. And I was like, okay. And then she like wrote one on, and it was I don't know. For me, it was probably really easy, but like for me, I don't get long division. So I was looking at it like, and she was like, she looked to the class and she was like, this guy doesn't know how to do math, and like made the class laugh at me. And I was like, yo, I was like, aren't we in French?
Yeah,
So like, it's
terrible.
crazy. You can't be doing that.
That's cruel. That's actually cruel.
I don't even know where she is now. She got pregnant, and I was like, how?
Oh my goodness. There was this one teacher though that honestly she didn't like her job realistically, and this was in grade 12. And I don't know what happened. A few years later, she ended up in jail. And I was like, wow. I mean, you reap what you sow.
Yeah.
You reap what you sow. But hey.
Well, wow, that's a little intense. But I hope things get better. I'm hopeful because of conversations like this and the fact that people now are not afraid to call things out. I think we're more comfortable voicing our opinion, which is very important. We're not afraid of that whole rebel label. Mm-hmm. Because I remember that was the I was so scared of that label. I was like, there were times where I was like, I'm gonna tell this teacher how I feel, and then you would get like the heat on your chest, and you'd start blushing, and you're like, and something like catches your throat. You're like, I can't do it. I can't be labeled a rebel. I can't do it. But now I don't think people are like that, which is nice.
Yeah, hopefully. Especially like from transitioning from high school to university and seeing how outspoken students were towards professors made me realize how messed up high school really was. Like how teachers actually silenced their students instead of listening to their opinions. And that needs to change. That really needs to change. Like we need to teach kids to become more opinionated. Like that is need that, you know?
Well, it like how boring would life be if everyone was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You wouldn't progress.
Would themselves. Yeah. Nobody would actually know themselves. They wouldn't even know how to communicate their feelings, voice their emotions and stuff like that. Like, and that matters, especially as you get older in adulthood. Like you need to learn to like voice your opinion, to set boundaries, to do those things. And high school doesn't prepare you for that.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I think that's a big reason why I had so much trouble like voicing out and talking about how I was dealing with things because of that. Like, I didn't want to be silenced in a way, if that makes, because I was always afraid of that.
No, it does make sense. It makes a lot of sense. Because you kind of know what can happen, and that possibility is enough to just silence you on its own.
Yeah, it's terrifying. I had one final question for you. Oh yeah, okay. So for people listening who are desperate to find themselves or don't feel like have just started to realize like I don't really know myself that well. And it's like that's a scary feeling when you don't know who you are. For those people listening, what advice would you give them on how to start like finding themselves?
First step, find God. That's it. Find God. The reason why I always say this is because God is the one that created you. You know, if you really want to know who you are, you need to go to the person that created you, because that person that created you had an intention when they made you. You know, they didn't just make you like, hey, I'm gonna just make this person from scratch and toss them on this earth. No, they were like, I'm gonna make this person. This person's gonna be named Aisha, for example, and they're gonna do this, this, and this, and this. Like, this is who they are made. This is who they were designed to be. Go to your creator and he reveals those things to you. God is so intentional. He really does reveal things to us. But we as a people need to be able to just have that childlike faith and go to God, go to him, believing that he's going to reveal things to us. And he will. He will. We just have to really have that childlike faith. You know, this world is all about the science, tangible things, and stuff like that. But God is, you can't see God until he reveals himself to you. And you have to be in this position, in this place where you want to seek him, where you want to know him. And then through doing that, he's going to reveal himself to you. And once he reveals himself to you, he's going to reveal you.
Mm, nice. Is there any way to specifically find him?
Talk to him.
Mm.
Talk to him. Like, just sit down one day in your room and just pray. You know, and if you don't know how to pray, just start by having a conversation. Like, hey, God, you know, if you don't know, like for me, I wasn't sure if God was listening to me. So I literally was just like, hey, God, you know, if you're really out there, if you're really up there listening to me, like, I need you to help me out. Like, I need you to show yourself to me. I need you to reveal yourself to me because I don't know what I'm doing. And
Yeah.
that was all I needed to do. Have a conversation with God. He's listening. He's with us. He really never leaves us. He's always with us. You know, we just have to call out to him. That's it.
Mm-hmm. And what about for people that kind of hear that and like scoff at the idea of God or a creator,
Mhm.
things like that?
You know, if if you don't believe in God, then that's you. You don't believe in God. But it wouldn't hurt to actually just talk to him, would it? Like, would that
Mm.
really take anything from you? It wouldn't take anything from you. You know, one thing that I always like to think about is, even if God doesn't exist, it's better to pray to him my whole life than to not pray to him my whole life. And then when I die and realize, oh, there is a God and there is a hell, like there is a heaven and hell, then you have so much more to lose. But
Mm.
knowing God, you don't lose anything. What is there to lose? What is there to lose to just say hello to God?
Right. I think because I'm personally not religious, but like it's not like I'm like God, ugh, you know what I mean? Like it's like I'm pretty open minded. I think you really don't have anything to lose in terms of just one conversation because sometimes you can find comfort in that,
Yeah.
in like just shouting your opinion out or like voicing your opinion to a higher power or like believing there's a high, like there really is no harm in it.
There's literally nothing to lose.
Yeah.
But in the idea that, let's say, you don't, then there is a chance for you to lose something.
Mm,
You kind of
right.
get what I mean?
I see what you mean.
Like, there is still that chance. Like, I'd rather serve God my whole life, and then if I pass away and God isn't there, oh well, it is what it is. You know, I just become dust. But if
Mm-hmm.
God is there, I'll be seeing a friend. I'll be seeing someone I worshipped and someone I praised and served my whole life. You know, I'd be going to
What?
heaven.
Yeah. And you also like found comfort in doing it your whole life. So it wasn't like, let's say you get to the other side and there's no God and you're like, oh, it's not like you're going, I wasted my whole life doing that.
No, you know, you don't waste anything. There is literally nothing to lose by praying to God. Nothing,
Right.
nothing. But there is so much to gain.
Mm, yeah. I love that. Um, where can my listeners find you, find your book, find your blog, find everything? This is your time to shameless plug the episode.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Aisha at Aisha the Poet, or is it Aisha the Poet? You see, that's the thing. I don't be on Instagram that much, but yeah, it's Aisha the Poet. You're probably gonna tag me on this, so just scroll down and tag and find me, and everything's on the link that's in my bio.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I'll definitely put those links down below. Aisha, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a pleasure.
This has been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. So
Of
much
course.
good conversation. Love it.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. And to all my listeners, I will see you guys next time.